People who call themselves Salafi today, they say that Ash'ari are not real followers of al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. They're really Kullabi Ash'ari. What they're implying basically is that yes, al-Ash'ari was a Mu'tazili, and when he became Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, he didn't fully take on every point of Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And what they're trying to say is that he had inclination to the views of a certain person called Ibn Kullab. Ibn Kullab was before al-Ash'ari. So they say at that time he was a Kullabi Ash'ari. You know, he wasn't a pure Ash'ari in the sense of the final phase of the Ash'ari that we know of. So they try to indicate that Ibn Kullab wasn't a real Salafi Imam, wasn't really a representative of Aqidah from the Salafus Salihin, because he delved into some issues using kalam, like rationalistic arguments, and debating, and looking at deeper meanings on certain points of Aqidah which you don't find clear-cut proof from Quran and Sunnah. So even if he had some linkage to Ibn Kullab, that's fine. But the question is, where's the proof that he was engrossed in the doctrine of Ibn Kullab? He might have looked into the issues that Ibn Kullab held and agreed with certain things and rejected some. But to say that he went into a third phase, where's the proof for that? Because they need to quote the biographers of al-Ash'ari. Because the thing is, if you can't quote early Imam who knows al-Ash'ari, was a contemporary of his, or came straight after, then why isn't saying he went through three phases? And it's Ibn Taymiyyah. He's brought these classifications in to attack Ash'aris, and at the end of the day, the Ash'aris rose against him because they were the dominant group in Damascus, in Syria, and in Cairo. So he was put in jail. You know the history of Ibn Taymiyyah. He was put on trial. The scholars rounded on him and they questioned him, and he wasn't as bold as he made out in some of his works, because when they cornered him in court, he relented and he said, "Oh, I'm in line with Al-Hasan al-Ash'ari." He wasn't as bold as he made out. One day he'd say things against Ash'aris, but taken to court and confronted by a group of ulama, high-ranking scholars from the four madhabs, he sort of recanted. And we'll see these evidences as well from big ulama like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. So if you're going to quote, "Oh, Kullabi Ash'ari, this is his second phase," quote the early Imam. Don't quote me Ibn Taymiyyah, who comes some 400 years after al-Ash'ari. There's a gap between 324, when he died, Ash'ari, and Ibn Taymiyyah died in 728. How many years is that? 400 years. Quote the people who knew Ash'ari closest, that he went through this phase. And who is Ibn Kullab anyway? Go and have a look and see if you can find other people who are attached to Ibn Kullab. Go and see if you see there's a link between Bukhari and Ibn Kullab. Go and see the introduction to Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and see what he mentions about Ibn Kullab and al-Bukhari. What connection did Bukhari have with Ibn Kullab? And you'll be astonished. Al-Bukhari was a student of Ibn Kullab. What we know of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari is he was Mu'tazili, and then he completely became Sunni, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And he wrote al-Ibana. I mentioned briefly the history why he wrote Ibana. And yes, in the introduction to Ibana he says he's in line with Ahmed ibn Hanbal. He may have studied the works of Ibn Kullab to see what Ibn Kullab had to say. You see, this word Kullabi, people who call themselves Salafi today, they say that Ash'ari are not real followers of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari. They're really Kullabi Ash'ari. The second phase that you're talking about, Kullabi Ash'ari. They mixed some points of Aqidah al-Ash'ari with Ibn Kullab's doctrine. This is their claim. And this again is an insult on these Imams who knew the Aqidah of al-Ash'ari, because they had it transmitted with chains of transmission. Al-Bayhaqi, for example, he had al-Ibanah. In his book Al-Asma wa Sifat that I named to you this evening, he mentions al-Ibana, and he had a copy of it, and he knew the contents of it. And I've said to you already, this book's been tampered with. Let me give you just one example. In the current editions of Ibana that's published, it mentions in a number of the editions, apparently al-Ash'ari said that Allah has two eyes. This is not from the Quran, that Allah has two eyes, nor is it in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No authentic hadith that Allah has two eyes, but one tampered edition of Ibana that's come through as manuscript mentions that al-Ash'ari said that Allah's got two eyes. Okay, but one big Ash'ari Imam was a muhaddith as well, al-Bayhaqi, he had the Ibana. When he talks about al-Ain, the eye, the issue of the eye of Allah, or uyun, plural, eyes, he never even knew of this concept of Aynain, that Allah has two eyes, or mentioned that it's in the Ibana. The Ibana itself, what we're trying to say, there's evidence that it's been tampered with, and this is one example. And there's more. One Shaykh of ours, in Damascus, an elderly Shaykh, Shaykh Wahbi Sulaiman Rawji, an Albanian Shaykh, a Hanafi Faqih. It's about 80 years of age. He has written a work looking into the Ibana and showing all the points which don't agree with the Ash'ari school as known by the students of al-Ash'ari and those who succeeded the students of al-Ash'ari. So for example, al-Bayhaqi, you mentioned him. Bayhaqi's teacher is Ibn Fawrak. Ibn Fawrak is a biographer of the Ash'ari school. He's a biographer of the Ash'ari school. He knows and knew the teachings of al-Ash'ari because Ibn Fawrak took from the students of al-Ash'ari directly. There's others before al-Bayhaqi's time, like al-Baqillani. After al-Baqillani, we have al-Juwayni. These Imams, and after all of these, al-Ghazali. These Imams knew the school better than claimants who think they know the school, because they're outside. Like I said before, people within the house know the contents better. They know the school of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari better. Where have they ever said that he went through 3 phases? You know, Tajuddin al-Subki, he's one of the foremost exponents of the Ash'ari doctrine. He never knew of these phases as well, and he's written on al-Ash'ari in Tabaqat al-Shafi'i al-Kubra, because Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari was said to be a Shafi'i madhab as well. So they can claim, but if they can't quote the authorities of early times, then it's just a claim. That's the way we look at everything. If you say that Allah's got 2 eyes, it's just a claim. Can you prove it? Because the same characters who say they follow the Salaf al-Salihin, they say Allah's got 2 eyes, and more than that, they say there's agreement of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'at, Allah's got 2 eyes as well. Who's saying that? Ibn Uthaymeen. You see, Ibn Uthaymeen says Allah's got 2 eyes, and Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'at agree upon that. That's the case. So where did the Prophet ﷺ himself say that? How can you claim something for Allah when you haven't seen Allah, or you don't have an authentic report to show that Allah has 2 eyes?
And then none of Ash'ari's students or students of the students of al-Ash'ari knew of this point of belief ascribed to Kitab al-Ibanah, which is one of the evidences to show that the Ibana has been tampered with, and the Ibana does not have a chain of transmission for it as well.